remember years ago, whenever I was on the highway patrol and I was working on the training staff, suddenly, without any notice at all, I was transferred to work as part of the colonel's staff. I really enjoyed what I did. Be honest with you, I was a little bit disappointed or discouraged about this transfer. It was moving me into an area that I didn't care about near as much as I did the training unit where I was. The next day after I had been transferred, the next day I reported to my new assignment. I walked in and I met the colonel in the hallway. And he looked at me and he said, Coleman, he said, one of your responsibilities is to be over the promotional system. He said, so get yourself promoted. And then he turned around and walked away. Well, that was a pretty big deal, and I'll just be honest with you, I put that first on my list of things to do in my new job. So it ended up truly being a blessing, even though I was discouraged to start with. Well, my name is Richard Coleman. I'm the pastor at Shepherd Church of the Nazarene in Lexington, South Carolina, and it's great to spend just a few moments with you today. Been looking in the Gospel of Luke, and we find where Jesus has been talking to a crowd of over 5,000 men, plus women and children. He's told the disciples, you guys need to feed them. And they're saying, well, we don't have anything except we found this one little guy that had 5 loaves of bread and 2 little fishes, and it certainly won't feed this crowd. And so Jesus told the disciples, he said, well, just have them sit in groups of 50, try to get them organized. And then Jesus took what he had and he started breaking it apart and putting it into baskets and giving it to the disciples and saying, go and give this to each of these groups. And so they started distributing it. Now I can hardly fathom what the disciples were thinking. You're probably thinking, we're going to feed this one group and there'll be nothing left and everybody else is going to be mad, and then there's going to be a riot, and I can only imagine what all was going through their mind as they were doing this. And then just a miraculous thing, they were able to feed all of the people. But I'll look at it, and even though the scripture puts no emphasis on this, it dawns on me that the disciples were the ones that they were doing all this work. I mean, they were carrying the basket of this group of people, going back to Jesus, getting more food, taking it to the next group. And I mean, the disciples were really working hard. And it never mentions the fact that they stopped to eat themselves. And so, at least using my imagination, trying to read between the lines, I can see where the disciples would have been just a little bit discouraged. This really isn't the way we planned this to come out. I mean, everybody else is getting something, but I'm not. This is not the way I wanted today to work. And then Jesus said, I want you guys to go out and collect everything that's left over. And so each of the disciples took a basket and they went out and they started collecting the things that the people did not eat. And there were 12 baskets of food left over. And again, the scripture doesn't put any emphasis on that, but it just dawns on me that there were 12 disciples, there were 12 baskets of food left over, and they were, I'm sure, hungry and discouraged, wondering why Jesus didn't take care of them. And now each of them has a basket of food for themselves. I think sometimes in our life we might get a little discouraged. We might not understand why God took us down a certain path. Or it might be that we took ourselves down a certain path and because even though we did it, now we're blaming God for the consequences of our own actions. But there's just times when we can get discouraged. They say that 20% of the people do 80% of the work in a church. And I believe that's true. And it's so easy for that 20% to feel overworked and I've just had enough and it's time for somebody else to do something. It's easy to get discouraged. But one thing that I've learned is that God always takes care of his people. And whenever we start getting a little bit discouraged or saying, you know, I'm working harder than anybody else, just to go ahead and say, you know, it's an okay thing because I'm doing this for the right reason. I'm doing it for God. It doesn't matter if I get the credit. It doesn't matter if I ever get a plaque or a trophy or a pay raise or any of that. If I'm doing it for God, I'm doing it for the right reason. And God does bless and reward those that live for him. So may the Lord bless you and keep you. May his face shine upon you. May you truly keep moving forward for God this week. Thanks for taking the time and viewing today.